Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Yeah, hello Nest family. Well, Drewy, I'm in Sydney. I'm in lockdown, so there isn't much to do. So on Monday night, I was really excited to sit back and say, at least I can watch my football team on a night when there's literally nothing else I am permitted to occupy my time with. And off the back of 2 defeats, I was excited, playing the bottom team at home, even when I saw it was raining, to watch my side try and show a little bit of pride again. And yet again, they let us down and the crisis deepened. It is hard to fathom how far we have fallen in the space of 3 weeks. We are an utter shambles of a football club on field right now. Hello and welcome to you, mate.
Yeah, it's what a cheery way to start. Yeah, well, the title of the podcast last week was "As Bad as It Gets," and yeah. I don't. How much lower can we go? And
I think it's the sequel, As Bad as It Gets, #2, right?
Yeah. You know what the worst thing, and I really feel for you because I've been in that situation where you're locked inside, and West Coast is like your saving grace, and then they don't quite deliver. Luckily, during that long lockdown we had in Melbourne last year, while the hub was going on, West Coast actually had that really great run where they won 7 games in a row, and obviously they were almost all those games were in Perth. But that was something that gave you a bit of life in what is a difficult time we're feeling for everyone in New South Wales at the moment, including yourself. But yeah, we were badly let down. Whether you're in lockdown, whether you're overseas, or whether you're at the game braving the cold, West Coast have not been delivering, the money's worth for the memberships and the fans and the supporters. And it's really sad, isn't it? Because we were flying high on this podcast after the win against Richmond. It felt like a really seminal moment in what had been a bit of an inconsistent season. And yeah, 3 losses on the bounce. Is this worse than the Sydney performance?
Not worse, because at least the effort was there.
Yeah.
So the Sydney performance, they just gave up like they did against Geelong. The effort was there. They were trying. The third quarter with more of those signs, like, they've just stopped here. But for the other 3 quarters, I thought the effort was there. But they're a mess in their minds. They're a mess on field. They don't know what they actually need to do to win a game. So they've tried to tinker with the game plan a little bit, clearly, and they played in between it against North, where they tried to be a bit more direct out of defence, and then also tried to play their old tired same way in the wet as well, which didn't make sense. It was just bizarre. You sat there just going, why? What? You're experienced, smart footballers. What are you doing? It's a wreck. It's an absolute wreck right now. And the job that Adam Simpson has to fix it, my word, it's enormous. And there are such important players, storied players at this club who are so crazily out of form that it wouldn't surprise if players like Jack Darling were dropped. I mean, 5 weeks ago, we spoke about him being the best forward in the game. Now, it honestly wouldn't surprise. I mean, it would surprise to an extent, of course, but it wouldn't be completely out of place if he was dropped from the Eagles side on form.
Yeah, and I guess there's so many elements to cover here. But I think what the game against North Melbourne proved to us is that even when there's effort, the game plan doesn't stack up anymore. So we can put a line through the whole effort thing. Is I think sometimes it's a convenient excuse for when there's other things that are going wrong, because you can't tell me that professional footballers don't turn up at their jobs on, under the bright lights with the cameras rolling and they don't try. Eagles players are trying every week. There are levels of effort, and they came to play last night, and they probably misdirected some of the energy early
I
Which,
didn't mind that. I didn't mind some of that early. I was like, at least they're showing some emotion, some fight.
yeah.
I was like, all right, you're giving away 2-3 free kicks, and so be it. At least they're showing some fight. And then it carried on a bit in the second half, and I'm like, all right, it's gone on a bit too far now.
Yeah, it got to a point where it was a bit much, and North Melbourne probably weren't really too bothered by it. That was my impression anyway, watching the game. But I guess one of the issues was, Garby, that we actually dominated the first half. We had a lot more inside 50s and a lot more of the play, but we only kicked 3 goals. And inaccuracy was a problem. The weather comes into play. North Melbourne's pressure was good, but was some of that energy misdirected on the physical stuff, and we didn't end up putting the score on the board? And then when North Melbourne got control of it in the midfield, then we weren't far enough ahead to keep them at bay.
Yeah. Well, I think they out-zipped us and outran us as the game went on. They had some pace and movement through the midfield. Jaden Stevenson, the prime example. And as the game wore on, we just looked to get slower and slower and slower and more lethargic in our chasing. That was the issue. I thought when the ball was there to be won in a contest, we were pretty good. But when we didn't have it, we couldn't keep up with them. That one goal they kicked inside 50, I can't remember who finished it off in the end, but Davies Uniacke and Stevenson both ran rings around guys inside our defensive 50. 4 or 5 Eagles around them. We couldn't lay a proper tackle. It was like they were trying, but they just couldn't catch them. I'm like, are we unfit? Why are we slow? I don't get it. It was so bizarre. And that happened more and more as the game wore on, so they were able to put more scoreboard pressure on and convert. And we turned it over a little bit as well. Sometimes we were kicking it longer than other times we went the short kick. Josh Rotham made a couple of bad mistakes in that quarter. You could see Adam Simpson at one stage saying, literally, you could lip read him saying, fuck Roth. When he messed up one. It was just the most unnecessary short kick that wasn't going to get us anywhere in those conditions. So we just seem to be playing silly footy far too often and are so confused about changing the game plan and then still wanting to fall back into our traits that have been successful in the past but aren't quite working now. So it's an odd one. I want to talk about one key moment. We'll get into some individuals. So the Todd Goldstein mark and goal, which is a pivotal moment in the game. I had an argument with mates last night about it because straight away they went to the Nick Natanui's lazy line. He wasn't chasing Todd Goldstein. Jonathan Brown had a crack. I think Justin Lepich had a crack on SEN this morning. Watching it back and watching the freeze frames, I'm not blaming Nick Naitanui there because there's under 4 minutes to go. We're down by 4 points. We had men back. Tom Barrass, Shannon Hearn, and Jeremy McGovern is standing on his own in a zone where he can easily peel off and affect that contest. If I'm Nick Naitanui, I'm going, you know what? There are men back there. I'll stand up here, let Todd Goldstein go down there. We can knock it through for a behind and take a mark, get the quick kick up. I can create something and get us inside 50 with less than 4 minutes to go in a low-scoring game and hopefully create a chance. But Jeremy McGovern doesn't go for it. I don't know why. He doesn't even get near the contest. And so it falls back on the Nick Naitanui's lazy tag because his man takes a mark and kicks a goal. Ordinarily, Nick Nat has to man him up there. But in that situation, I'm not blaming him. I just don't understand what Gov was doing. What's your take on that key moment in the game?
Yeah, I would assume that there was some sort of handover done where Nick calls out to Barrass, whatever, look after Todd. I've got no issue with Nick being set up for a potential rebound. But I guess the optics of it just look bad when it's your man who takes the mark and kicks the game-winning goal and you're sort of having a sip of water on the 50-metre mark. So I get both sides of it, but Barrass is nearly 200 centimetres. McGovern's obviously he's a key position backman. And, we're not exactly bereft of tall people in our team. So I don't see any problem with Nick handing over there. It was just good mark. And as you say, Gov didn't affect the contest. But that's just the sort of stuff that happens when we're in the space that we're in. And it happened all night. There were comical moments where we turned the ball over where you could see our players thinking, like their minds were ticking over, and that's never a good thing. You want your team being confident, playing on instinct, and knowing the game plan inside and out. It was obvious that wasn't the case last night. So interesting, Garby, that at Simo after the game he talked about the magic wand and the the stardust or whatever, and there's no quick fix here. And you look at the team, like they are playing so far below what the 22 is capable of. And like if you handed me that team sheet at the start of the season, here's your team against Western Bulldogs, Sydney, North Melbourne, I would have been so confident in us being not only competitive, but winning maybe 2 of those 3 games, because it's almost our best 22. We've got all the guys back from injury. I don't even know where to take the team from here, because the core of our successful team over the last 5 years, they're all playing. They're all fit. And we're not flushed with talented youngsters outside the team to necessarily bring in. And you start dropping guys who have got 4 years left on their contract and get paid big money and are all Australians. Like, you just dump them out of the team. Like, is that where we're at?
I think we are. I mean, they said all week, judge us on Monday, which I thought was a little bit cocky, the comments.
Oh, God.
But I thought, okay.
So badly.
Yeah, I thought, okay, if you can back it up, fine. But there was a bit of a smirk on the faces of everyone who said it. Judge us on Monday, like we're going to come out breathing fire and we'll be right. Well, for a quarter, okay. And then it faded away again because you're just not sure about your game plan. So the emotion side of it, okay, that was fine. But you have no faith in what you're doing right now, and too many guys are out of form. So it's all well and good saying that, but it faded away against a team, mind you, that's playing good footy at the moment. North are going about it well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we judged you on Monday, and you fell short of it once more. So you can't keep going with that line. You need to make some changes. Adam Simpson said he doesn't want to keep changing 5 or 6 players, but he also said guys don't have a mortgage on their spot for life. Form comes into it. So I said it last week, Jamie Cripps shouldn't be in the team right now. He hasn't played well enough for 5 weeks. And that's a position where you can bring in a young player at a half-forward flank and spark it up.
Yeah.
So I don't think he deserves to be playing for the West Coast Eagles senior team at the moment. And then you change things up positionally. So Jeremy McGovern's horribly out of form. It feels blasphemous to criticise a 4-time All-Australian legend of the club, but he's actually letting us down at key moments at the moment. Do you throw him forward, considering no one's giving a target up there?
Yep.
Do you say to McGov, you're playing forward this week and we're bringing in Harry Edwards to play defence? And then say to Oscar Allen or Jack Darling, have a spell for a week. Just have a rest. And we're going to mix things up and change it up. Or Josh Kennedy doesn't go to Adelaide and we play Jeremy McGovern forward. That feels like a sound move to me right now. Luke Edwards should come in, playing in Adelaide especially. But, you know, the young guys that actually gave us that lift, Foley, Edwards, they went out the team and we've fallen apart. So I think you go back to that and bring them back in. And chuck in Connor West in the midfield. The midfield needs a spark. They're too slow. Move Dom Shee to half forward where Jamie Cripps plays, where he's played before, and say, Connor West, you're on the ball, right? You're playing on ball. You are Xavier O'Neill. Something like that seems very logical to me right now.
Yeah, I love the Connor West call. He's playing well on the waffle. At least the stats say that he's playing well. Again, we'd have to ask someone who's watching the Eagles each week. McGovern forward, I actually think is a really good one as well. Garby, you've come armed. You've come prepared. I like it. So if you make the hard decision and drop Darling, you could also do something a bit funky and play Darling as an on-baller or, you know, do something else. And one thing on McGovern not playing in defence, because I love the idea of getting Harry Edwards back in, is that McGovern often said earlier in his career that his favourite position was the ruck. Play him as the backup ruckman or the 15% game time ruckman as something different. Get him around the ball. See what happens. He's got good hands. He's got footy smarts. If he's around the ball, maybe, you know, he brings something to us that's a bit different. You know, rolling Shepherd through the midfield. Just try something a little bit different, see what a change would do for us. It might be just what we need, but feels like a big name axing is coming.
I think so. And Cripps is the one who stands out, and I'm not sure about whether he's got the minerals, as they say, to drop a Darling or a McGovern. I can't see that happening, but Darling would be the closest I would think out of the big names right now.
I could imagine a managed
Yeah.
Not an omitted, maybe.
So I was thinking about this today, right? So let's imagine you're in the Eagles match committee. Okay. So we're in that room and someone says, we're leaving Jack out this week. We're putting Gov forward, or, we're bringing Bailey Williams in, or whatever it is. We're leaving Jack Darling out. Use him as the example. Do you go that way and say, listen, he's a legend of the club. He's arguably our third greatest key forward in history. 34 years of this football club. We can't just play him in the waffle. Let's say he's managed and give him a week off and then see where he is after that and see where the team is. Or do you say, no, you know what? No one is good enough to not play waffle footy. Maybe that's actually a problem of this club right now as we elevate these guys and put them on a pedestal too much and they've let us down. If you're dropped, you play in the waffle. I don't care who you are. Which way do you go on it on that?
Such a great question, because the ruthless statement is that they play in the waffle. And it's not about a week off. You don't get rewarded for playing badly by getting a weekend off to spend more time with your loved ones. As much as it might be the best thing for Jack to spend more time with his family, we know he's a family man. But yeah, you got to roll him out in the waffle. I reckon they've got to play for the Waffle Eagles. It's it's almost offensive to the guys who are toiling away in the waffle. If you're going to omit someone, then you got to do it right. So, yeah, imagine Darling playing in the Waffle Eagles team. There'd be a lot of attention on that performance, wouldn't there?
Yeah. Well, I think it also sends the message like, we're going to cut you boys down a peg. You're not friggin' royalty in this state. You are paid, a lot of you, great money. And maybe that's one of the issues. Guys are on juicy contracts, beefed up and have been for a while. To be honest, a lot of them aren't earning their paycheck right now. Legitimately not earning the money that they are paid. That happens to everyone in all forms of life from time to time. But when you're paid that much, well, you do come in for more criticism. That's just a fact. And some of them aren't earning it. So, maybe it's a way of saying, listen, a little bit of a reminder, boys, and a sobering thought. This is how life works. If you're not performing, you get axed and go back and play with the average footballer, and maybe it sends a message to the rest of the team as well. I think that's the way it would have to be if he's willing to do that.
Why is Dom Sheed playing so badly comparatively to the amount of ball that he's getting? What is he doing so wrong right now? Is it everyone else's fault? Like Dom's had 65 possessions in the last 2 weeks, but not many of them have been telling. Whereas Dom Sheed used to, basically every possession was meaningful at his best.
I think Dom Sheed actually sums up the Eagles' issues in that I think he struggles when the conditions don't suit him. I think when it's a warm day in the West and he's got a bit of space, he can cut you up.
Yeah.
But I think when it's when the opposition's putting pressure on and we're not getting free, or the conditions don't suit us weather-wise, I think he struggles to be effective with his possession. And it's almost a metaphor for the rest of the team. He maybe sums up the rest of the side. So I just think he doesn't have the natural skill or the leg speed to be damaging when he gets the ball in those conditions. But when it's all set up for him in the West, we got some space, game in our terms, beautiful weather, then he can carve you up.
There was just something poetic about West Coast asking for the game to be on Monday because we wanted to maximise the crowd, and then absolutely pissing down and being a monsoon. There was just something really fitting and ironic about that, that we got punished for that move when it was okay on Sunday.
I was happy that it was raining because I thought, all right, let's see what we're all about. We unfortunately failed that test. I want to ask you about Adam Simpson. So we spoke about it last week a bit as well. The test is enormous for him to overcome all of this in every aspect of the club, where the list is at, the game plan, and the mentality of the players, and try and apply surgery to all three facets. Do you think he will come out of this? Or will it swallow him up and he won't be the Eagles coach in a year or so?
Oh, I haven't thought for 1 second that this is the end of Adam Simpson.
I'm not saying is it the end, but this is the big test, and it could go for 12 months, 18 months. And it will probably go one way or the other. I think a lot of people are saying he will get through it, but I think the question is fair that it could swallow him up like it has done to other coaches before. I'm not saying he should be sacked in the next month or, he's under that sort of pressure right now, but that is the job at hand. It's an enormous one. So does he get out of it and get us back up there, or for one reason or another does he end up departing?
No, I don't see this process being the beginning of the end for him.
Okay.
No, I've got a lot of faith in Adam Simpson. That doesn't mean that he's doing a good job right now.
No, I think he's struggling right now.
Yeah,
I think he's really struggling right now.
But I don't think that this will be the beginning of the end, if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah,
but something has to change. Was it so?
No, I think he'd be mad to write him off. I'd back him over what he's done to get through.
Well, that's not the question. It's not about writing him off. The question to you is this the beginning of the end of his tenure?
I think it's possible only because I do worry if the voice has become tired on the players. And if he doesn't find a way through that, it's very hard to turn over a list to an extent that will make everyone at the club happy enough, including himself, for him to carry on as opposed to seeking a new challenge or the club saying it's time for a change. That's a possibility. I think he'll get through it. My call is that he will make it through it and he'll be at the club for another 5 years. But I don't know. It's kind of like, I was watching Entourage recently and, with Vinny Chase's career's up in the air and Mark Wahlberg says to Ari Gold, does he get through it? And he's like, 50-50. Maybe it's 50-50 right now. Like, it's just an even call as to whether he makes it through or not. Really interesting time for him in the club. Massive challenge.
It's so hard to be objective, isn't it? Because we just love him so much for what he's done.
Yeah.
It is really hard to be objective. I just believe in, I think that where he took the team from the end of 2017 to where we were in 2018, that showed me that he can rejuvenate a list quickly and revamp a game plan. So the team that Adam Simpson has taken to 2 grand finals, they're not completely different teams, but they were different and the game plans were different. So that was within the space of 3 years.
Yeah.
So I have confidence that can happen again because that's all we can do. Like we've got all these senior players on good money, on long contracts. Like we are committed to this core. Like we're not. Like this team is not about to break up. Like we've put together a collection of talent to try and win flags.
Yeah.
And we can't just all of a sudden pivot to a rebuild and play the kids. Like there's all the social media stuff being like, let's play the youngsters. You can't can't drop 8 senior players. Like this is our team.
I think some more youngsters need to come in to actually improve the team right now, not to rebuild the team. It's to improve the team to try and win against Adelaide on Sunday. But no, there are similarities between Nathan Buckley and Adam Simpson. They've had pretty similar career paths.
Yeah.
I mean, their legacies are decided in some way or differentiate in some way by a Dom Sheed kick, really. Nathan Buckley could be spoken about in the same way that Adam Simpson is now by Eagles fans had Dom Sheed missed that kick, right? Because he's a premiership coach and that's how big of a difference it makes.
Yeah.
But in the end, it felt as if the time had come for Nathan Buckley and the club to part ways. That could happen with Adam Simpson and the Eagles in a year to 18 months, potentially. So I don't think everyone's fully aware of that now. I think you'll get through it because I think he's good enough. And there's still enough of a base there and the club's so well set up. But, man, it feels tight right now as a call and a predicament.
So it's interesting, the Nathan Buckley comparison. It's actually a really good one. My personal view was that they were going to commit to Buckley for another couple of years. So I was surprised. Like, let's be frank. Like Nathan Buckley would have happily coached on. You can dress up the press conference however you want, but if they had offered him a 2-year contract, he would have signed up for sure. Yeah. So it's interesting because you're right. If that Dom Sheed goal doesn't happen, Buckley gets that contract. Yeah, exactly. Premiership coach. He wants to play on. He gets that next contract, and he starts the rebuild of the club, and then you see where you are in 2 years, and maybe you commit to Buckley long term or whatever. So it is intriguing. But Simpson he's earned the right to revamp the team again, to attempt.
Oh, of course he has.
To get
they've given him the contract to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So he's signed up until the end of 2024, 2023.
Yeah. But just because they've agreed doesn't mean that he'll actually want to. He might look at it and go, he might think they are not responding to me anymore. No matter what I do, it's just not clicking. And therefore it's time for me to go before it all falls apart to a point where none of this is repairable for any of us. Maybe I want to go back to Melbourne and live life there. I've always thought about that. I'm just speculating completely as to what could go through your mind. So it can still go the other way, but I think he will get through it. But there's so much work to do, and the list is in such a fragile place because of the age that, it could also go the other way, unfortunately. So, man, it's an interesting time to be an Eagles fan. It's going to be a tough watch for a year or two at times, and maybe they'll surprise us and click again. That's possible too.
Would we call Alistair Clarkson if Simo got to the end of next season and decided it was getting too stale and he wanted to go back to Victoria?
Yeah, I think you have to. You'd have to, and you'd say, how do you feel about it? And if he's like, mate, I want that list, I want that team, I want to coach that club, living in Perth would be great, you'd be mad not to consider it, wouldn't you?
Oh, if you made the call and Clarkson was open to it, you would go as hard as possible.
100%. Because don't worry, Alistair Clarkson will be desperate to get one over Sam Mitchell. Like, I just get the feeling that he knows that Mitchell's the right man to take over, but at the same time, he'd want to prove that he's not done with yet as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Again, this handover was not Alistair Clarkson's idea. Not by a long shot.
Yeah.
So, interesting, isn't it?
Some really interesting talking points there. Okay, let's do the Nest medal votes. We can talk about some of the positives, and then we can get onto the Adelaide game and discuss some of the changes in a bit more detail for the Crows on Sunday and how we think we might go over there. So you're 5-1, Drewy?
Yeah, so 5 to Nick. In that 4-goal burst that we had at the start of the last quarter, where we actually looked like a functioning football team, he was like incredible around the stoppages. I think he won over 10 clearances for the game. He had nearly 20 possessions, 40 hit-outs. He was a driving force for us. He shouldn't have gone off. That 10-minute mark of the last quarter, he shouldn't have gone off. North got back on top. Cunnington started taking control. And then we lose the game. I'm not too worried about the whole Goldstein thing. I think he won the battle against Goldstein, even though Todd ends up kicking the sealer. So Nick was great. I actually thought Tim Kelly was good. In those conditions, he did some tough stuff on the inside. I thought like he got his hands dirty. We didn't see all the flashy stuff from Kelly, but I didn't mind that. We know that he can do that. Not too many midfielders stood out on the night. So he just looked a bit better. Like he had his feet under him, after a couple of weeks back in the team. Shuey buzzed around. He's probably the physicality early I enjoyed from Shuey. Like he laid a couple of big tackles. He was involved. Probably didn't get his hands on the ball as much as we would like, but I liked the intent that he had early. Barras down back, a couple of big moments. He toiled and battled really hard. So 2 for him. And then 1 to Zach Langdon, who I thought gave us a bit of a spark up forward.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I like Zach Langdon's game. I think he's emerged. I know Jermaine Jones is obviously out injured, but we've discussed Archie, Langdon, Petrocelli, Jones, those players a lot. He's actually the one in the last 2 weeks who stood up and said, no, you deserve that spot. Jones is out injured. Petrocelli, I find extremely frustrating at the moment. And Archie just didn't do enough, unfortunately, despite trying. So he's been good. He gets a vote for me as well. So I'll go 1 to 5 then. Zach Langdon, the 1. Yep. Tried. His kicking's disappointing at the moment. I think that's letting him down.
Yeah.
But he's doing some nice things, and his work ethic and his tackling and his marking inside 50 was good last night. Shannon Hearn too. Like he was the one defender when he got around it. Barras did a bit as well, but when Shannon Hearn went around it, you felt a bit more confident. The others, not as much. Josh Rotten did some nice things, but thought Shannon Hearn had a good game. Liam Duggan 3. I thought Duggan was a lot better. His tackling especially was clean. His link-up was good. He tried to get us going forward when he got the ball, which I liked. Tim Kelly 4 for the same reasons, and Nick Nat 5. So similar. So I've added them up. Not as many votes this week. I don't think some people can bring themselves to do it. And I understand that. I think we do. It's a tough call.
Yeah.
But Nick Natanui gets the 5. Tim Kelly got the 4. Zach Langdon, 3 votes.
Nice.
His first votes of the season. Zachariah with the 3. Shannon Hearn got the 2. And Liam Duggan got the 1. Shepherd, Kennedy were unlucky. They got very close. Yo got a 5 from someone. Shuey got a few votes. Rotham got a mention. But they were the 5 to 1. So it's becoming pretty non-competitive at the top, it must be said, Drewy. Nick Natanui out to 37 votes. He'll be storming ahead. Tim Kelly on 25. Jack Darling could be dropped this week on form. He's third on 23. Tom Barras, 21. Dom Sheed, 16. Gaff and Redden, 14. Oscar Allen, 13. And then Brad Shepherd and Shannon Hearn on 8. They've jumped up a bit. And the first votes of the season for Zach Langdon, he's on 3. So it's the Nick Natanui medal as it stands right now. There is no one who is getting near him at the minute.
We didn't.
Go on.
We didn't talk about Elliot Yeo. Did you enjoy seeing his outburst? It's been reported, but as one person said it was at Gaff and one said it was at McGovern. Whoever it was at, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, so did I. I was just going to mention it, so we're on the same page. Yeah, I did enjoy it, and it's exactly what we've needed, and we've called out for it. He was clearly saying, that's your man, stay on him. You could see that clearly.
Yeah.
Which, it would seem weird to say that to McGovern, because that's not really his role. He doesn't really play that role, and it was high up the field. So I don't know if it was definitely to him. I'm not sure exactly who it was to. Do you know who the North player was that had the ball or he was referring to?
So Goldstein had taken that mark.
Yeah.
So if Goldstein had drifted forward and McGovern had picked him up or whatever and let him go.
Right.
Otherwise, if it was Gaff, then it was a midfielder who had run past higher up to get a handball, I think, and they kicked it to Goldstein. I don't know who it was. But does that speak to maybe to a little bit, if let's say that he is yelling at McGovern about Goldstein, is it like a bit of like, I know you're the best you're the prototype for the intercept mark in the modern game, but sometimes you still got to actually pay respect to the guy that you're on. Like, just sort of
like the way in which he said it. Yeah, the way in which he said it, watching it, it spoke of a little bit of unrest perhaps among some senior players. A little bit of friction potentially. I know those things happen in footy games, all sport, all the time. But the way in which he said it, it seemed like deep-seated frustration.
Yeah, like it's an on-running joke that McGovern just like lets his man run off, and he guards space, and he can always fall back on that. Gov's just like, hey man, like I'm just drifting into space. I'm taking intercept marks. If my man gets the ball, whatever, like I'm guarding the dangerous space. I don't care what my man does.
Yeah. Or
for someone like Yo, that would piss Yo off, because Yo's accountable, wants to tackle blokes. He's like doing the team things. And then he sees McGovern, who's like sort of going for glory intercept mark.
Yeah. I mean, there could be a variety of things. Maybe he just thinks his commitment in all areas has not been there the last month. Maybe there's something that's showing up in reviews and McGovern's biting back at it. I mean, there's so many things that could have happened that could lead to that feeling. You don't know.
Yeah.
But it boiled over in that moment, which is understandable. And Elliot Yeo is the right player to be speaking that way right now, as is Nick Natanui, because they're doing everything. Luke Shuey's trying. Too many others aren't. Too many others just aren't there with their intensity in their application right now. Gaff, Sheed, Darling, McGovern, Cripps, Liam Ryan. I mean, he's been pathetic the last month, really. Like he honestly has. Like he rips the game open against Carlton, and now he's running around giving away free kicks and seemingly disinterested.
He's been like horrible, really bad. I mean, it's not like no one's alone. It's just the level of bad that you've been, basically. So Adelaide Crows are not a good football team at all.
No.
They're probably the only team in the comp who are playing worse than us.
Maybe Hawthorn.
I don't know if you watched. Well, Hawthorn beat GWS a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
But
they got smashed by Freo. I mean,
Adelaide were insipid against Essendon, and they've won only 2 of their last 12 games. They don't have a great list.
No.
They don't have a lot to play for.
Their midfield's really thin. Ben Keys sort of carries them at the moment.
Ben Keys, he carries them. Like, he's having a great season. I'm a big fan of Ben
fantastic.
Keys. But if Ben
He's
Keys
great.
is carrying your midfield,
He's carrying 2 of my fantasy teams. I'm loving him.
So, yeah. But it's hard for us to sit here and say we should beat Adelaide, because we sat here last week and said, well, it's North Melbourne. The only difference is North Melbourne are playing well.
We are on form. Yeah, probably level with Adelaide as the worst team in the comp right now. So there's no confidence that we'll beat anyone at the moment. I mean, it looms as a, 50-50 game. It wouldn't surprise if Adelaide, the favourites, come bounce down. That's where it's at. So, no, I don't have much confidence at all. Of course we can win, but it wouldn't surprise if we lost the way we're going at the moment.
Adelaide should be sitting in their team meetings this week saying, we have a wounded dog.
Yeah.
This is our grand final. We're not going to have many opportunities to win again this season. We're going to have a home crowd. Let's pile on the pain.
Yeah. And the problem is we had that week of world against us, enormous criticism, game at home to come out and prove something, and we failed. So then your spirits almost drop so much. We've done that whole dog and pony show about judge us on Monday.
Yeah.
What do we do now? Yeah, you worry a bit about the spirit and where they'll be as a result. I'm more interested in the team and how we set things up and what changes are made. So I've touched on some of them. Is Oscar Allen's spot in the team locked away at the moment, the way he's playing? What do you do with the second ruck situation and Oscar right now as well?
Well, we don't have anyone banging down the door for the second ruck spot, really, do we? I think I wouldn't be putting any blame on Oscar's shoulders.
No, but he's not playing well at the moment either.
Yeah.
Not doing a lot at the moment right now.
I'm hesitant to blame the tall forwards because they're so reliant on almost everyone else playing well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it seems to be breaking down, though, because we don't seem to have a lot of targets. So they're getting it at half back. And yes, a lot of the time they are choosing to go lateral, which is annoying. But sometimes they're looking up and they don't seem confident in what's being presented in front of them either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to picture Oscar Allen taking marks up on the wing, but I can't really think of many times it's happened recently.
No, and there was one, I think, last night.
I
like Bailey Williams. I know he had a bad game against Carlton, hasn't played since, but I'd like to bring him back.
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit bereft of answers. I've spent the last 20, since the game, trying to think of some really solid solutions or some suggestions. I just don't have many. I think selection's fascinating because we'll get a real window into where Simo's at. He wields the axe, then you know that he's fed up and he wants to change. There's a chance that he still is just going to be so stoic in his belief in the team that he might roll out a similar side.
Yeah.
And back himself and the team to play the way that we know that they can.
Yeah.
But that, just because he's showing faith doesn't mean that's right. That's being stubborn. That's being maybe ignorant.
Yeah. There's one player we haven't mentioned as well who's been going quite well at the Waffle, and that's Mark Hutchings.
Yeah. What's the role that Hutchings would play this week against Adelaide?
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to play tag. The worry you've got with Hutchings is we look so slow in the midfield, and even at his absolute best, he's never been quick.
Yeah.
So you're just slowing things up even more, aren't you?
So Paul Seedsman, I think, is the most inside 50s in the league.
Right.
He's one of the best players in the comp at receiving on the outside and delivering it inside 50. He's having a career best season. The question is, can Hutch go with him? But there's a role for you if you're looking for one.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you just sit him on Ben Keys, or you just hope that he'll give you the grunt that you need in the middle. Yeah, I mean, I think Cripps goes out for me. Archie goes out. Nelson goes out. Those three definitely. Maybe a Rotham. I'm not sure. And you're looking at Edwards. Who else do you bring back? West. Edwards, West, and one other along with them, I think, to freshen things up a little bit. That's what I would hope they would do this week. But who knows?
Yeah, well, we've got our frontline midfield essentially, apart from Redden, all available. So it's hard to make room for the reserve midfielders when they're all there and playing. You'd have to put Sheed into the forward line and juggle things around, which is possible.
Yeah, I like Sheed into the forward line. I mean, Gaff's struggling a lot. He really is. But I think Sheed to half forward, drop Cripps and bring in a Connor West and play him on ball gives you a different dynamic in there. Edwards in for a Nelson. And then I don't know how you make room for Harry Edwards, but I would look at, maybe Josh Kennedy doesn't play this week. And so McGovern goes forward and Harry Edwards plays in defence, or Harry Edwards goes forward, something like that. You need a fresh target in there. I think you definitely need a fresh target in the forward line at the moment.
Yeah, I like the idea of changing things up a little bit. Yeah. Let's not wheel out something that Adelaide can study. They've got a pretty good example over the last 3 weeks of how to break it down and beat it.
That is true. So, Drew, you're off to the Olympics. You're off to Tokyo on Sunday. So I'm going to need a new co-host of The Nest for a couple of weeks, I think. I mean, you're lucky you get to break away from all this nonsense for a while. How refreshing is that? But we'll miss you for a couple of weeks. What a trip, though. You must be pumped.
Yeah, I'm excited to get over there. If I can get through customs and if they let me in. So there's no guarantees. I'm really looking forward to telling some stories about some of these athletes, Garby, who have day jobs and they have lives away from sport, and their pursuit of athletic perfection has been a 5-year journey. They don't just get to get picked every weekend, regardless win, lose or draw. They actually have to earn it and be really good at their craft. And money has nothing to do with it because most of them don't get paid. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's quite refreshing. It's quite refreshing, actually.
Yeah. But then there's some glamour athletes you get to cover as well, like our boomers right now who are looking good. They've just beaten Team USA today. I mean, our golfers, Mark Leishman and Cam Smith, big medal chances, and then some of the swimmers. There's still some glamour athletes too that you can cover, and obviously some massive stories that will take place. So it's going to be a different Olympics without a crowd, but you're going to an Olympic Games. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I wouldn't rule myself out of checking in while I'm away.
Okay, good.
I've got a 4-day lockdown when I arrive, and that coincides with our normal pod window.
Bang. Let's lock the first one in there.
And then don't forget the 2 weeks quarantine on the way back. So, I'll be around. I'll be available.
You could do a Nest special in 2 weeks quarantine when you come back. We could
do one a day.
Do a show a day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll be in lockdown together.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Although I do still have work to do over here. Mate, enjoy it. Let's hope that you so you're on the bird on Sunday as it stands when the Eagles are playing Adelaide, same time?
I'm Sunday night, so I'll get to watch the game.
Okay. Well, let's hope you're farewelled with a win, hey? And let's hope a horror week is transformed somewhat and we can get 4 points on the board and feel better about the season and still our chances of making finals, which somehow are still alive, believe it or not. So let's hope that our fortunes change on Sunday. Drew, have a great trip, mate. Enjoy it. What an experience. Thanks to everyone for listening and for your votes and for your feedback. And we hope that helped you make a little bit more sense of where we're at right now. Keep the spirits high.
Yeah, thanks, team. We're still in the 8. Let's not forget that.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.